James Sutton. This is Road to Recovery. My special guest today, my good friend Mark Robinson. And welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So even though this is one of my good friends, I talk to him regularly, and he's an important part of my recovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, absolutely, man. First of all, thank you for having me on the program. It's a great opportunity to spread the message of hope and to just kind of inform folk about this road to recovery, and that recovery is possible.
True
and
that.
that we do recover in spite of the seemingly insurmountable obstacles and surmounting odds. You know, we still recover.
Right.
I'm a native Washingtonian, born and raised right in Washington, D.C. Grew up in Northeast Washington, raised primarily by my grandparents and my mother, who was a young mother at the time.
Okay.
I was educated in D.C. public schools early on, and then I ended up going to Archbishop Carroll because my grandmother said, you know, you're not going to school with them hoodlums.
Yeah, you went to a good Catholic school.
Right, right. So she was dead set on sending me to Archbishop Carroll, which was right up the street from where I lived, and that's where I went. And initially it was difficult because it was a complete adjustment. You know, we had to wear uniforms.
Right.
Ties, the whole 9 yards. It was very disciplined, very regimented routine, but I liked it. In the beginning I didn't like it, but then it kind of grew on me, and it became, I guess, a pattern for me, and began to see older guys that were in class that dressed well, wore the ties, coordinated their outfits. So I began to emulate and model that, and did very well in school, and went on to Northeast University, and marketing and finance were my majors. But then at a certain juncture during that time, I became kind of overwhelmed.
Okay.
And didn't know exactly what to do, and didn't know how to tell folk that I was overwhelmed, and didn't know how to deal with those emotions. And I began to do things that weren't conducive to what I was really there for. I began to smoke weed and use other substances as a means of, first of all, socially engaging and having fun, and as a means of relieving what I was really feeling. And before I knew it, you know, it got kind of chronic. I was doing it all the time.
Okay.
And it's interesting how, you know, you are perceived to be successful, and everyone is cheering you on because you're doing the right thing, but inwardly I was feeling like this is not really working. And I began to use more, and it became an issue. But I kept it hidden, of course.
Right.
And as time moved forward, you know, James, I came back to the D.C. area. I was afforded other opportunities while in that area, which were great opportunities, and I took advantage of them. And from the outward appearances, everything was going fine.
Yes.
But inwardly, you know, I was still doing those things that was kind of undermining my own success. But I didn't know that they were undermining my success because it hadn't really surfaced to the point where it was visible.
Okay.
But at some juncture, it became difficult to conceal. And those things that were shining and appeared to be good for me kind of flipped.
Oh, yeah.
And it was no longer that shining success. I became what one would term a failure.
Oh, wow.
And I was very disappointed and disillusioned, but I didn't know how to say to anyone, look, I failed. I didn't make the cut. And when I came back to this area, of course, my grandparents, who had very high hopes for me, that I would get away from all the nonsense that was going on in our neighborhood,
Right.
didn't know that I had come back kind of like really beaten up emotionally, and I began to use more. And the very people that I got away from, I gravitated back toward and became caught up in that arena of people who were using, because I was using,
Right.
and I continued to use. And it got worse. And as you and I both know, active addiction is when the euphoria wears off, the ugly side of addiction begins to
Becomes
show
work,
itself.
yeah.
Right.
Fun is gone.
Fun is gone. And that slide becomes very much a downhill trajectory,
Right.
And, no one could have told me that.
Would you have listened?
Right. Well, people did try to tell me. In
Oh,
fact,
okay.
people did try to say, "Hey, man, this is not the way to go. You don't want to do this." You had that side, then you had the other side that were feeling as bad as I felt. That was like, "Okay, come on, man, let's do this, let's do that."
And misery loves company.
Misery loves company, and I continued down that path for a while, and couldn't stop.
Okay.
And that's the interesting thing about addiction, is that active addiction is that my mind would say you need to stop,
Okay.
but my ability to do that was just null and void. I couldn't do it.
Right.
There would be temporary times when I would stop, but then I would pick it back up again.
Okay.
So that compulsion and obsession to use continued. And so I really, my summation is that, there's no human explanation as to why I'm able to sit here and kind of tell my story and talk about the perils of addiction, because it really got ugly. And, I became very disillusioned, very hopeless. And in fact, in the end, I was in a position where, I had experienced several incarcerations. I experienced street violence to the
Okay.
point where I was hit in one instance 7 times.
When you mean hit, you mean what?
I mean, I was shot 7
Shot
times.
7 times.
Right.
And you lived.
5 times in my chest
Well,
and
obviously you
stomach,
lived.
twice in my back.
Yeah.
And I lived. But that was to no credit of mine. It was nothing that I did.
Okay.
I could actually feel the life leaving my body. And the interesting thing about it is, I didn't plan for that to happen that night. I thought that I was going to do the next thing like I had always done.
Okay.
But I didn't realize that death was lurking. And there was nothing I could do about it. In fact, it happened so fast I couldn't even ask for help. The surgeon told my family that it was literally a miracle that I was able to run from the place where I was hit into the middle of the street, because the wounds in my back disabled me from the waist down.
Wow.
And it took me a calendar year to physically recover from those injuries.
Yes.
Life support. The surgeon told my mother at one point that when they brought me in, that legally he could have pronounced me DOA because I had bled out.
Wow.
But something told him to work on me. And that certainly wasn't me. There was nobody in the area to tell him, hey, this guy has potential. He had good upbringing. He went to good schools. He had some glowing successes in his past.
Right.
But he just made some bad decisions. No one was there to tell him that. He said something told him to work on me. And today I know what that something was, and it was God's grace.
Yes. Okay.
From my perspective.
Right.
But you would thought that after that experience, I would have got the message that, Mark, you need to change. And I thought I did. If you'd have asked me at that point, and people certainly did, I had this great revelation about needing to change, and I was determined that I was. But I didn't understand the disease of addiction.
Okay.
I didn't understand the compulsive and obsessive nature of that disease. And I didn't know that I needed help, the kind of help that I needed. I knew I needed help, but I didn't know what kind of help I needed. So anyway, long story short, I went back. Mm-hmm. After all of that trauma, I went back. And in fact, I went back to the same gentleman I left that night and told him that originally I told him, said, man, look, I'm going to be back in an hour. And I never made it back because that incident happened after almost a calendar year of recovery, physical recovery. I went right back to that same gentleman and started my process all over again.
Because you hadn't been in treatment.
No, I hadn't been in treatment.
Not for addiction,
right.
But you just been treated for your medical, for your
my
wounds.
Medical, right,
yeah.
Exactly. There was no substance abuse.
Yeah, so you had no change in your mindset.
Right, no change in the mindset, other than understanding that, you know, I felt like something needs to be different, but how to find and make it different, I didn't know.
So it's kind of like in contemplation.
Right.
Okay.
But I went right back to the same person and started that insanity all over again. And lo and behold, in the end, once again, I was back in the same hospital. And another surgeon was telling me, son, this is what's going to happen to you. And this is a little graphic and literal, but this is what he told me. He said, the bowel is about to explode in your body. If it does, you're going to die. We can save you, but if you keep living the way you're living, you're going to die anyway.
Wow.
And at that point, for no reason that my mind could fathom, I wanted to do something different.
And that was the beginning of your recovery?
And that was the beginning. A gentleman came to my bedside. There was a former partner in crime and using buddy who had been on the road to recovery for about 5 years, who I thought had gotten away. And lo and behold, he was doing service work.
Okay.
And he came to my bedside, him and another recovering person, and said, man, look, when you get on your feet, I'm going to take you somewhere. And he took me to a support group.
So that was your first meeting?
That was my first meeting.
Wow.
And it was amazing. It was amazing from the perspective to see people and look at people and see the smiles, and there was a level of genuineness and authenticity that had long since evaded me.
Okay, right. 'Cause you were caught up.
I was like, this is amazing.
Right.
But I was still struggling with the mindset, the thinking.
Yeah, you hadn't really done anything. You haven't done any work in recovery.
No.
You're just becoming more getting in a surrender mode.
Right. I was showing up.
Right.
And as a result of continuing to show up, I began to connect with other people. And the process took hold and began.
Okay. I think we're going to take a little break right now.
Okay.
But, wow, that's an amazing story. Really unbelievable. Like you said, there's no human explanation for why you're here. But I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm here, too.
You're glad too. So we're going to take a little break right now. This is James Sutton, my guest today, my good friend Mark. And we'll be right back.
Bring it.
Time out, guys. I'm late to dinner. My mom's gonna kill me. Catch you guys later.
Mom wants us home. Okay. Bye, guys.
You guys need a ride?
Sure. Yeah. All right. How about some one-on-one?
I gotta go eat, man. Sorry, I'll see you later.
I'm James Sutton. We're back with Road to Recovery. Special guest today, good friend Mark.
Yes, sir.
So Mark, that was a fantastic story, really moving, unbelievable, really. Now, how did you get into the field? Because you just shared how you got into recovery yourself, personal recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Then what made you decide to work in the field of addiction treatment?
Well, initially, it was about finding employment,
Okay,
because active addiction leaves you unemployable.
okay,
So the opportunity to gain employment came through an individual who was in the field. And my first opportunity was with Second Genesis, a program which I was in, paradoxically, years ago.
okay,
And I was able to begin as a part-time employee. Part-time turned into full-time. Full-time turned into management. Management turned into upper management. And the whole pathway was feeding me. And I was seeing how my experience, both in the street, in the community, through the things that I had gone through,
right,
was aiding me in this work. And it kind of deepened my commitment to want to serve,
okay,
because I was encountering people just like me. And without personally disclosing all of the gory details of my past, I was able to represent a beacon of hope and light to folk, and also educate people who had never experienced some of the things I had experienced,
yes,
about how to reach people that are in the position of actively using and needing services.
yes,
And that's very key, because a lot of times folks don't necessarily understand how to communicate to people who are actively using.
they haven't been there,
Have been there.
don't speak that language.
Don't speak the language.
Okay,
And sometimes don't have the empathy
oh yeah, that too, yeah,
required
compassion.
to really communicate in an earnest way to touch the heart of a person who is suffering. Because a lot of times people that are still caught up in these death styles and are trapped in these vulnerable communities have gone through processes and been introduced through systems where they've been encountered with a lot of insincerity and haven't closed the loop, and things haven't been accomplished, and they haven't
Okay.
been successful in getting good outcomes.
Okay,
So when they run across a person that's able to instill some hope and encourage them to continue, it's a win.
right,
From that scenario with Second Genesis, I eventually went to other treatment programs that I worked for, and currently I'm now with Family and Medical Counseling Services Incorporated,
okay,
which is primarily out of Washington, D.C. and servicing wards 7 and 8. But we most recently have started a program in Prince George's County under the umbrella of harm reduction, a Syringe Service Program in Prince George's County, which I coordinate that program.
what does that consist of?
Well, it's a backpack model.
Okay,
It consists of going into the communities where we've identified the highest overdose fatality rates to be within Prince George's County.
okay,
Going in and supplying individuals who are actively using opiate-related substances with sterile syringes and other drug-using tools to keep them safe, to prevent the spread of infectious diseases, HIV, hepatitis C, and any other bloodborne pathogens that may exist as a result of, that lifestyle.
right. Well, let me ask you this, what about the person who says you're helping them use, you're giving them needles?
We're keeping them safe. We're keeping them safe. We're not supplying people with drugs. The drugs
Okay.
are already in those communities.
Okay, so they got drugs.
Yeah, the drugs are already there.
So giving them needles, how does that help?
It helps them because it gives them the ability to use in a safer fashion
Okay,
to prevent the spread of infectious diseases.
Like
to prevent
HIV?
HIV,
Okay.
hepatitis C, to prevent the reoccurrence of other diseases from happening. And it's also the front door for a continuum of care, because if me placing a sterile syringe in that individual's hand will open the door to link them to other services that they may very well need, that's a win.
Okay.
And then the other piece is we're building a relationship.
Right. That's an important relationship.
And
Okay.
we're building relationships one person at a time, one syringe at a time. So every time I encounter someone, I'm having a conversation.
Yes.
They're having a conversation. They're able to talk about things that they may not normally talk about.
Okay.
They're able to talk about things that they might not march down to the health department to talk about.
Right.
They feel comfortable with men on the front line discussing with them what their issues are.
So what else do you give them besides syringes?
We give cookers, we give tourniquets, we give sterile water, we give cotton, we give wound care kits, we
Okay.
give
Wow.
fentanyl test strips.
Now tell me about that, because we haven't got them on the street yet in Montgomery County, and I know in Baltimore I think they're using them, and I went to a conference in St. Louis, and they're using fentanyl strips pretty good to save lives. It's working out pretty good in a lot of states. So how do you just give it, when you give a syringe, you give them a fentanyl kit?
We give them 10
strip.
generally 10 fentanyl test strips.
Oh, you give each person, you might give them 10 strips. Okay.
Yes. And it enables them to test their substances before they use them, because we're educating people at the same time about the potential for overdose with the use of fentanyl.
Yeah.
And fentanyl is so pervasive and so prolific in these communities that 9 out of 10, it's in the narcotic that they're using.
So is it, in the state of Maryland, is PG high in terms of overdose deaths?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I think we had like 53, and I think 53 last year in Montgomery County deaths. But thanks to Narcan, I think it was over 200 people overdosed, but because of the first responders, they didn't die because of Narcan.
And the Narcan distribution and training has also been very effective.
Okay.
You know, because again, we are in the communities where people are actively using.
Right.
So when we see an individual down as a result of what looks to be an overdose, we're able to administer Narcan
Wow.
right there on the spot and call 911 and get that person some assistance.
Wow.
It's my contention, and this is the message as it relates to harm reduction. You know, our goal is to save a life.
Yes.
And there's no wrong door. We want to save a life. We don't want to judge the value of the life. Let's first save the life.
Okay. I like that.
And then once we save the life, then we can work on trying to maybe help the individual increase their perception of their own value.
Okay.
But let's first save the life.
Right.
And a lot of times people will ascribe value to an individual's life who is actively using and say, well, they're not worth saving.
Right.
But I disagree.
The value is
because
diminished.
I
Right.
was worth saving.
Prime example.
I was worth saving. I know many other men and women who were worth saving
Right.
and are perfect instruments to help those that are suffering in our communities.
Right.
Not only to actively help them, but to help design the infrastructures that are needed to supply the services.
Exactly. You know, you've been there.
Yeah, that's a very key. There's a lot of gaps in services these days.
Yes.
And people like myself and yourself and other individuals who are committed to doing this work are the keys to helping fill those gaps.
Right.
To make it a seamless transition, to make it a warm handoff.
Right.
When I meet someone who is in need and they say, hey, Ms. Robinson, I need some help, man. I need to get in treatment. I need to have someone I can get on the phone and that I can get this person to that's going to be a warm handoff and they're going to actually do something.
How's that working out? Because we don't, some parts of the country have what they call service on demand, treatment on demand. And we haven't got that over here yet to the degree where if a person is ready right now, there's a bed ready. You know, there's always a shortage of beds. Are you able to get them to a hospital, or if they really want to go?
We've been doing very well. We can do better.
Okay.
We can do better. We'll Uber a person from point A to point B.
Oh, that's a smart idea. Okay.
We we hold people's hands.
Okay.
We walk them through these processes.
Okay. 'Cause
People
if you
often-
don't, they'd get away. They may
They
not
get
be
away,
back.
right, right. And then sometimes the very administrative part of it can be very overwhelming.
Oh yeah.
You know, if a
Tedious,
person's not feeling good,
Yes.
you know, it can be very overwhelming.
Right.
There can be other mental health issues that would impede a person from being able to properly communicate. You know, pain will cause you to be incoherent
Yeah.
and
homelessness,
non-vocal.
too.
Right, all of that.
All of that.
Right.
And then you add somebody who's co-occurring has, you know,
Yes.
hasn't been taking their meds
Yes.
because they've been on drugs.
Yes.
Then you have like a real
It's
confused person.
multifaceted.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. That person's
absolutely.
multidimensionally need, you know, a lot of, you know, they're chronic, right? They
Yes.
need a lot of help.
A lot of help.
Yeah.
So, but by being there, being present,
Mm-hmm.
being consistently present, builds a level of trust, builds a level of confidence. It enables a person to see, hey, these people are for real.
Right.
They're not just talking.
Right.
They're actually trying to help us.
Right.
And so we had some successes. You know, in some instances, people go halfway down the line and turn around and go back.
Sure.
But that doesn't discourage us doing the work.
And you're doing some great work. Now we're coming to the end. We got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you are passionate about that you want to mention? You know, in the closing couple of minutes, we covered a lot. And
Yeah, I just want to say this about family and medical counseling
Okay.
services because, you know, we are a full service organization, a community-based organization that's been working in the community and dealing with vulnerable communities for a long time, since
Okay.
1976. I'm thankful to be under the umbrella of that kind of organization which promotes this type of work
right.
and isn't afraid to venture out into these areas where people are suffering and employ folk who are well equipped to do the work.
Yes.
That's a, you know,
That's
I have a
huge.
team. I have a team, man, that's outstanding.
Is that right?
I mean, we not only do we do cleanups, we collect used syringes. We clean up areas that are maybe infested with used syringes.
You mean like playgrounds and stuff?
Playgrounds, other
Okay.
areas where syringes have been found and so
Like
forth.
alleys and stuff?
Wherever they are, we go there.
Wow.
And so, you know, I have a team of men that are dedicated
Right.
to doing the work, and we operate as a team.
Yes.
And it's an alliance. And, you know, with an alliance, everyone has to kind of work in a synchronized way,
Okay.
knowing their role, knowing their part, staying in their lane,
Staying in their lane, right?
but yet moving forward.
Okay.
So that's what we do.
Okay. So now we're really at the end of this. We got about a minute left. So in closing, thank you so much for showing up today. And you know you're my man. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
you always bring you always bring hope when you know. I've never called you and you haven't come to the jail and shared for the jazz men. You know,
Yes.
and they love you. You know.
Yes.
I probably need to bring you back soon.
Yes.
So thank you again, and we're going to have you back. As a matter of fact, we'll have to have you back.
Okay.
And hopefully when you come back, I'll be able to report on the syringe. I'm going to follow your lead, and we'll be having some backpacks with some fentanyl kits in Montgomery County.
Yes.
And going, you know, I have a team, you know, hopefully, of dedicated workers who can save some of the people that don't know they need saving. Matter of fact, in St. Louis, I saw a badge that said, like, we can't recover if we're down under, right? So how can, a person can't recover if they're dead, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's important to save a life,
That's right.
you know,
That's right.
and then we can work from there, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So my guest today has been Mark Robinson, my good friend, and who works with the Syringe Program in PG, and sounds like a great organization in Ward 7 and 8. This has been Road to Recovery, and I'll see you on the road to recovery.